It isn't hard for humans to cool down on a hot day. When it gets hot, you can go inside, turn up the AC, and enjoy some ice cream. When predators are present, animals and humans have the ability to make decisions on how they will move. In times of trouble, we're able to run away, fight, and/or hide. When we're sick, we can go to the doctor and get the proper medicine and treatments we need to feel better. For sessile organisms like plants, these solutions are far less straightforward. These root-bound organisms are constantly having to fight battles from all fronts in order to survive. When the sun comes out and the temperature gets hot, plants have to endure. They can't run away when herbivores come to eat them or go to the doctor when they're sick. They have to endure cool temperatures as well as survive during periods of drought or heavy rain. So how have plants been able to survive all of these stresses? When it comes to surviving stress, a plant's nutritional diet is extremely important. Plant dietary needs fall into two categories: macronutrients and micronutrients. Macronutrients are elements that are required in large amounts for plant growth and development. Micronutrients, while only needed in small amounts, are still highly important. These major macronutrients are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, calcium, and magnesium. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium are less easily attained from the environment compared to carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, and they're needed in higher quantities than calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. For this reason, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, or NPK, is what farmers generally add to fertilizers in order to enhance plant growth. You may have even seen the letters NPK with numbers on bags of fertilizer at the store. These represent the ratios of these macronutrients present in the bag. These three macronutrients provide plants with the means to grow stronger and healthier. Nitrogen is an important component of amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks for proteins, which are needed for all cellular tasks in any organism. Phosphorus is a major component of DNA and RNA, as these molecules are important parts of the phosphodiester bonds that support the structure of the helix. Phosphorus is also a major building block for lipids. Lipids have numerous roles in the cell, but are most well known for forming cell and organelle membranes. The third macronutrient, potassium, isn't so much needed as a structural component like phosphorus and nitrogen, but is extremely important for a variety of processes in the plant. One example of this is controlling drought tolerance and water loss. Plants have small pores on their leaves known as stomata. Potassium helps control opening and closing of these pores to release water and to help plants breathe. Without these macronutrients, plants don't grow properly and get sick. These symptoms are easily shown in the plant leaves. Without nitrogen, you get chlorosis or breakdown of the chloroplasts, turning the leaves yellow. Without phosphorus, you get accumulation of anthocyanins, which are these small molecules that have this purple pigment that accumulate when this plant is stressed out. And without potassium, you also get chlorosis and scorched sections on the tips of the leaves. These macronutrients are super important for plants, but if you think about it, fertilizer isn't added manually to every soil in every corner of the world. So how do plants get them? Today I'm going to be focusing more on how plants obtain phosphorus. When it comes to phosphorus, plants aren't able to make it, but instead take it up into their roots. The major form of phosphorus they can take up is inorganic phosphate. Plants have a variety of proteins that allow phosphate to move from their roots and travel throughout the entire plant body. When plants grow in soil with low phosphate, they initiate various growth programs in order to scavenge as much phosphate as possible. These are known as phosphate starvation responses. So one phosphate starvation response is how plants are able to modulate and change how their roots grow. Plants will stop making long roots and increase lateral root density in order to increase phosphate uptake from the soil. They're also able to secrete proteins from their roots known as acid phosphatases. Acid phosphatases are able to, in turn, break down molecules that are in the soil and release phosphate to increase uptake into their roots. Plants will also break down their own cells in order to obtain phosphate. For example, I mentioned lipid membranes earlier. Plants are actually able to break down their own lipid membranes in order to scavenge as much phosphate as possible and move this to areas of higher importance in the cell. Thinking agriculturally, the soil is a gradient of phosphate concentrations. The same fields could have areas without enough phosphate for plants to live, or with too much phosphate for them to grow healthily. To help the plants that don't have enough phosphate or other nutrients, farmers will add fertilizers to the field. This is highly beneficial for plant growth and for harvest of delicious food. Unfortunately, this isn't always the best for the environment. When it rains, fertilizer added to the soil washes off with the rain into rivers, lakes, streams, and ponds. These types of environments lack high amounts of nutrients. Algae and cyanobacteria love these nutrients and eat them up quickly. This leads to a rapid increase in growth of the populations of these microorganisms. This rapid increase, known as an algal bloom, leads to discoloration of the water, depletion of oxygen, and blocks out sunlight for the other organisms. This in turn leads to the death of most of the organisms living in these environments. We only have one Earth. It's important that we find better ways to distribute phosphorus and other macronutrients in order to protect our environment and to enhance food security for all people worldwide.